Welcome, and thank you for making time for this conversation. This is not a presentation about whether AI is impressive. We're past that. It's also not a scare session about robots taking jobs. The more immediate issue is much more practical. AI is increasing the speed of work faster than most organizations are increasing the speed of decisions. That gap is what I'm calling the decision latency crisis. In plain language, people can now produce more ideas, drafts, plans, options, and analysis than leaders can reasonably review, using old approval habits, so the work gets faster, but the organization doesn't. That creates congestion, it creates frustration, it creates rework, and it quietly burns out managers who become the choke point for every AI-assisted output. Today, I want to show you what's coming, why it matters at the director and executive level, and what leaders can do about it before it becomes a culture problem, a productivity problem, and ultimately a competitive problem. The problem starts with a simple gap. On one side, AI increases production capacity. Employees can use it to draft, summarize, research, brainstorm, analyze, compare options, and create first versions in minutes. That's a real advantage. But on the other side, decision capacity often hasn't changed. The same leaders still need to approve. The same meetings still need to happen. The same unclear authority still causes people to ask permission for things that should have been delegated long ago. So the bottleneck moves. It used to be that work was slow because creating the work took time. Now work can be created quickly, but it waits. It waits for review. It waits for approval. It waits for direction. It waits for someone to decide whether it matters. That waiting space is the AI speed gap, and if executives don't address it deliberately, they'll accidentally convert AI-enabled productivity into organizational congestion. This is the shift leaders need to see. Before AI, the pace of production often protected the decision system. Work took longer to create, so leaders had more time to process it. That buffer is disappearing. When an employee can create 5 options before lunch, the leader now has 5 options to review, prioritize, redirect, or approve. That sounds like progress until it starts happening everywhere at once. Then the leader becomes the throttle. And here's where the culture risk enters the picture. Productive employees begin to feel like the organization asked them to move faster, then punished them by making them wait. That's not an employee engagement issue in the traditional sense. It's a design issue. AI reveals whether the organization has clear decision rights, healthy delegation, disciplined meetings, and leaders who can say yes, no, or not now with speed and clarity. At the executive level, this becomes risk. It's not just an inconvenience. It starts as productivity waste because work is completed faster but sits longer. Then it becomes manager overload because directors and executives get flooded with more material to review. Then it becomes employee frustration because the people who embraced AI improved their speed and tried to be proactive now feel stuck behind a slow gate. It also creates strategic drift. When everyone can generate ideas and proposals, the organization may have more options than it has decision discipline. And then there's the governance side. Inconsistent AI use can create quality concerns, confidentiality issues, brand inconsistency, and policy confusion. So when I use the phrase decision latency, I don't mean slow leaders. I mean a system that was not designed for the speed of modern work. That's why this belongs at the executive table. Here's one of the most important executive shifts. A lot of organizations use approval as a substitute for clarity. When expectations are unclear, everything gets pushed upward. When risk tolerance is unclear, everything gets pushed upward. When decision rights are unclear, everything gets pushed upward. Eventually, the leader's inbox becomes the organization's operating system. That won't survive AI acceleration. The alternative is alignment. Alignment says, here are the standards, here are the guardrails, here's what you can decide, here's what you must escalate, here's how quickly we expect different decisions to move. That doesn't remove executive control, it improves it. The executive role becomes less about touching every decision and more about designing the architecture that helps the right decisions happen at the right level. A powerful question for a leadership team is this: where is our organization waiting on us? That question is uncomfortable in the right way. This is the framework I would use with an executive team. DRIVE. Define decision rights, reduce approval drag, install decision rhythms. Verify AI-assisted work, evaluate decision latency, notice what this is not. It is not a prompt engineering class. Prompting matters, but prompting does not fix unclear authority. It doesn't fix approval bottlenecks. It doesn't fix meetings that never decide. It doesn't fix a culture where people are afraid to move without permission. The DRIVE framework is an operating model. It gives leaders a way to redesign how decisions move through the organization so that AI creates speed without creating chaos. The point is not to make everything fast. Some decisions should be slow, thoughtful, and deliberate. The point is to stop making low-risk, reversible decisions crawl through the same process as high-risk strategic decisions. The first move is to sort decisions. Most organizations don't have a decision speed problem everywhere. They have a classification problem. Routine decisions are treated like operational decisions. Tactical decisions get escalated like strategic decisions. And because people don't know which lane a decision belongs in, they default to approval. So executives need to define the categories. Routine decisions should often be immediate. Tactical decisions should usually move the same day. Operational decisions may need a few days. Strategic decisions may need deliberation. The key is not to remove judgment. The key is to place judgment at the right level. A director-level employee should not need executive approval to move every low-risk improvement forward. At the same time, an employee should know when AI-generated work creates risk and needs escalation. Clarity is what creates speed. This latter is practical because it gives people language. Level 1 is decide and act. If it's low risk, reversible, and routine, don't make people ask permission. Level 2 is decide and inform. People can move, but leaders get visibility afterward. Level 3 is recommend and approve. This is where AI can help employees bring better options, but leadership still needs to make the call. Level 4 is escalate immediately. Legal exposure, safety, ethics, HR concerns, confidential data, media attention, major financial risk. Those are not the place to experiment. The beauty of this ladder is that it respects both speed and risk. We're not telling people to move fast and break things. We're telling leaders to stop requiring approval for things that only needed alignment while still protecting the organization where the stakes are real. The second move is to reduce approval drag by pre-approving the repeatable. Every organization has decisions that leaders make again and again. Can we send this communication? Can we publish this training? Can we pilot this small improvement? Can we use this AI-generated draft? If the answer is usually yes, then the organization should not require a fresh yes every single time. Build pre-approved pathways. For example, if a communication uses approved language, does not change policy, and goes to a limited audience, maybe it doesn't need executive review. If a process change is low cost, reversible, and doesn't affect service delivery, maybe a manager can pilot it for 30 days. This is where executives can create a lot of speed without losing control. The control comes from the pathway, not from personally approving every instance. Next, install decision rhythms. Organizations measure response times for customers, service requests, projects, and finance processes, but they rarely measure internal decision speed. That's a miss. AI makes decision timing matter more because the work arrives faster. So leaders need service-level expectations for decisions. Routine decisions may need to happen the same day. Tactical decisions may need 24 to 48 hours. Operational decisions may need 3 to 5 business days. Strategic decisions may appropriately take longer. Crisis, legal, safety, and ethics issues should escalate immediately. The point is not to make every decision urgent. That would be chaos. The point is to define which decisions deserve speed and which deserve deliberate thought. If everything is, when I get to it, latency becomes normal and nobody feels accountable for the waiting. Verification is the balance point. Without verification, AI creates risk. With too much verification, AI creates another bottleneck. So the standard has to be simple and risk-based. First, a human is accountable. AI can help draft, summarize, brainstorm, or compare, but a person owns the final work. Second, facts have to be checked. That includes numbers, policy references, legal language, names, dates, and claims. Third, data must be protected. Employees need to know what information can and cannot be entered into tools. Fourth, outputs should match the organization's voice, values, and audience. Finally, high-risk content has to escalate. The goal is responsible speed. We want to move fast enough to benefit from AI, but governed enough that leaders can trust the work. The fifth step is to evaluate decision latency. This is where the concept becomes measurable. Organizations should track average decision turnaround time. They should know how many decisions are pending by leader or by team. They should track rework caused by delayed or unclear decisions. They should notice which decisions are escalated unnecessarily because the decision rights are unclear. They should look at employee wait time for approvals. This doesn't need to become a bureaucratic monster. Start simple. The purpose is not to shame leaders, it's to reveal system drag. When we make the invisible visible, leaders can ask better questions. Why is this decision taking 8 days? Why does this department escalate everything? Why is this manager buried in review requests? Why are employees waiting on decisions that should have been delegated? That is how you move from anecdote to action. AI will increase the amount of work managers receive. That means we need better intake discipline. Leaders cannot be expected to review a pile of AI-generated work that simply says, "What do you think?" That is not a decision request. That is a transfer of cognitive labor. A better request clearly states the decision needed, the recommendation, the options considered, the risk level, whether the decision is reversible, and the deadline. This changes the leader's role. Instead of sorting through a vague pile of material, the leader makes a clean decision. It also develops judgment in employees because they are not just producing output. They are learning to recommend, prioritize, and frame decisions. That is one of the hidden opportunities of AI. It can help employees produce faster, but the intake process can help them think more like leaders. Meetings are one of the places decision latency hides. A meeting that ends with "let's circle back" is often a latency factory. The fix is to be honest about the meeting type. Is this an informed meeting? Then don't pretend we are deciding. Keep it short or make it asynchronous. Is it an explore meeting? Then name what we need to learn before we can decide. Or is it a decide meeting? If so, the agenda should start with the decision required, the decision owner, and the deadline. This is especially important in an AI-enabled environment because people can bring more information than ever. More information does not automatically create better decisions. Sometimes it just creates more conversation. Executive teams need the discipline to say, are we informing, exploring, or deciding? That one question can remove a lot of organizational fog. This is the heart of the operating shift. Push authority down, but move guardrails up. That means executives define the playing field. They clarify strategic priorities, risk tolerance, brand standards, cultural expectations, ethical boundaries, data rules, and escalation triggers. Then managers and employees decide inside those boundaries. This is different from abdication. Abdication says, do whatever you want. Guardrail-based leadership says, here's the field, here are the lines, here is the score we are trying to change, now move. That is how organizations create speed without chaos. If executives try to personally review every AI-assisted decision, they will become the bottleneck. If they create no guardrails, they invite inconsistency and risk. The answer is disciplined delegation. This can be implemented in a practical 90-day path. In the first 30 days, diagnose. Map the decisions that matter, where they get stuck, who owns them, and what risks are involved. In days 31 through 60, design. Build the decision rights ladder, create intake standards, and identify recurring approvals that can become pre-approved pathways. In days 61 through 90, install, train leaders, pilot decision service level expectations, and launch a simple dashboard to see where work waits. The goal is not to create the perfect model in a conference room. The goal is to make decision flow visible and intentional, then improve it through practice. Most organizations will not do this because they'll keep treating AI as a tool issue. That creates an opportunity for leaders who understand that AI acceleration requires leadership redesign. This is where Legend Coaching enters the conversation. We are not positioning this as a software implementation. We are positioning it as an executive leadership implementation. First, we help the senior team create shared urgency and language. Then we conduct a decision latency audit to identify where work waits and why. From there, we help build a decision charter. Decision rights, escalation rules, risk categories, AI verification standards, and decision turnaround expectations. Then we work with directors and executives on the human side of the change. How to delegate, how to make cleaner decisions, how to stop using approval as a substitute for clarity, and how to lead in an environment where work moves faster than traditional hierarchy. The promise is straightforward. Turn AI acceleration into executive decision advantage. Organizations do not need more noise around AI. They need a leadership system that can absorb the speed AI creates. Let me close with the core idea. The next AI crisis is not primarily a productivity crisis, it is a decision crisis. Organizations are not going to drown because people cannot produce enough work. They are going to drown because their leadership systems cannot decide what to do with the work fast enough. This is why decision architecture is becoming a core executive capability. Leaders who ignore this will feel busier, more reactive, and more buried in review. Leaders who address it will create a real advantage. They'll help people move with clarity, they'll protect the organization through stronger guardrails, they'll reduce frustration, and they'll turn AI from a scattered productivity tool into an organizational capability. That is the work ahead. And for executives who are willing to engage it early, this is a chance to lead the next era instead of reacting to it. This appendix slide is here so the presentation has credibility without turning into a research report. The research signal is clear. AI adoption is rising, AI agents are becoming part of the conversation, and organizations are beginning to redesign work around human and AI collaboration. Gartner's language around decision intelligence is especially relevant because it points toward the same operating question: how are decisions actually made, supported, and improved? Legend Coaching's contribution is the leadership implementation layer. We are taking the AI trend and translating it into executive actions. Decision rights, approval pathways, intake standards, decision rhythms, verification, and measurement. That is the practical work organizations need next.